research lab there. Just wanted to review it. And they looked at
Thank
it and
you.
decided I was wrong. So when they came to give my, they were ready to just bounce into, oh, yeah.
So I'll get us started.
Okay.
Hi, I want to like come sit with you guys, but I'll stand here. So we have open to our virtual participants. If they have any questions, I'll just wait for them to type them in. But I had a question. There was a lot of great advice that you guys gave to our younger generation. What is one thing that you would say that you wish you knew at their age that you now know now?
Sort of what I said to everyone, that I always tell young people, be confident, you've got this. I didn't tell myself that. I doubted myself very much. So if I had just been more confident in knowing no one else around me knows any more than I do, and I belong here, I would have been maybe a little easier for me.
Yeah, I think I would say, as I said to one young woman after this session, today, that you know more about the topic that you're talking about than anybody in the room.
Yes.
And you really need to be confident that that is in fact the truth. And so you need to, I guess that you build that as you get more comfortable with the science that you're doing. But certainly, at a thesis defense, you know more about that thesis than anybody else. And so you should bring that confidence, not being cocky, but that kind of confidence to that situation.
So what I would pick as the thing that I wish I had done differently was when I went into physics, I was so scared. I was like, okay, I need to become an expert on all of this. And the only thing I did was physics. The only courses I took in physics, unless, there was a requirement that I do something else. When I graduated, I realized there was an architecture course at MIT that was really fascinating. It was like photography and architecture. And I wish that I had taken the time to explore things outside of physics. The bottom line is, once you graduate, you don't have time to learn new things. That's why I say, make sure you know the stuff in your discipline cold, because you're not going to have that much time to try to catch up. But I also wish that you have more time when you're in school than you will ever once you graduate. And I wish I had taken the time to become enriched by other subjects. And the reason why is because what I have found is it's me taking the physics that is my foundation and combining it with other disciplines that has produced the most innovation, the most things of beauty. And I think that I don't have time to get as broad as I would really want to be in order to have all those things manifest. I think it would have been a more beautiful.
And the nice thing about that, of course, is that the physics major allows you to explore other disciplines. And I actually did that as an undergraduate.
Thank you so much. So we do have two questions online. So Nicolette asks, what interests you to entering in physics, and what has your experience been as a woman in STEM?
Well, I guess I date myself, but I was a child of the Sputnik era. And even though I know it was not intentional that young Black girls should be interested in science and mathematics, I was pulled into that. And I had a great high school math teacher. In fact, up until the 11th grade, I really thought I was going to be a mathematician. And then I took my physics course for the first time. Even though it was a very bad high school course, I saw for the first time how I could use mathematics. And that's what's fascinated me about physics.
Yeah, I wanted to be a math teacher. So I'd love to talk with you offline about that. Do you have a response?
So
Director.
I actually, sort of backed into it. When I was in, junior high school, I went to the library and I found this book called Star Rangers by Andre Norton. It was science fiction. I'd never heard of science fiction before. And there were all these fascinating ideas and concepts. So the story is spinning out of what if, and then the storyline spins. And I was just fascinated. So I decided I wanted to be a science fiction writer, although I can't write very well. So what I determined was, well, maybe I need to understand a little bit more about, how the science or how radios work. So I was always taking science and math courses so I could become this writer. And of course, it's never ending. You never get to the end of it because there's an infinite amount of stuff to learn. And eventually, when I went to college, I had the foundation that would allow me to continue in physics. But I was a closet physicist the first 2 years. I wouldn't
I
tell
love that.
people that's what I wanted to do, because I was afraid
Yeah.
that they would laugh at me.
Yeah. Did you want to respond?
Yeah, I sort of fell into physics myself. My undergraduate and master's degree is in math. But then I realized physics has all of the best math problems. Like, so if you, and I taught math even after I had my PhD. If I wanted to make the math applicable to the students, I would do physics problems.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to love physics.
I love that. Our online audience is asking lots of questions. So I'll ask the ones that are in, and for sake of time and respecting your time, if we can get one response, if you guys can choose to take it on. So Megan Thompson asked, 2 of you worked at or are still at funding agencies. Can you talk a little about the challenge? I can't read. Challenge of being in that environment and some of the ways in which it can give you advantages.
So I was very fortunate. I went into the Engineering Research Center's program office, and that program was started by a woman named Lynn Preston. And she and I hit it off. She recognizes people's talent. She recognized my talent. And everything I know about nurturing high performance teams, I learned from her. And we had a large number of women in our division. In fact, we had, we were reversed. I think we didn't have very many men. Anyway, yes, we had a diversity problem.
I would just really quickly like to add, if you want to be part of the group that gets to decide what science gets funded and who gets to do science, work at a funding agency, because you can have part of that decision-making.
You also want to spend time in a funding agency, no matter what you do. If you go to academia, because it wasn't until I got to NSF that I understood how to get the money. And I was like, oh, all those things I was doing wrong all those years, I could have saved myself a lot of time if I had just done a 1 or 2 year stint at a funding agency.
That's some really good wisdom. I tell my students all the time, follow the money. Really
I was
understand.
also at NSF earlier on in my life.
Go for the money.
The Mississippi program.
Mhm.
Yeah. These are great responses. I just this is such a moment for me. I really appreciate y'all taking the time. So we have a question. It appears to me that education has become extremely political these days. What is the biggest challenge for a student studying physics today? Sorry, and I lost it. I have to go back to it. Okay, it appears to me that education has become extremely political these days. What is the biggest challenge for a student studying physics today?
So fortunately, physics is not one of those subjects where I think a lot of politics comes into place, but my advice would simply be, don't go to one of those states to study. You can't say certain things. You know, you can't take a history class on Black history. I would just say,
You
don't
need-
go there.
You need to be selective. Yeah, I don't think physics has been affected by the politics
Not as
yet,
much.
not nearly as much, no.
I would go along with that.
Another question from Garfield. What type of impact would a decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to eliminate affirmative action have on diversity and enrollment for the physics community?
I think the physics enrollment is already very depressed at most major institutions. I think you mentioned that statistic, of something like 1,300 BS degrees in 2,600 institutions. I think it's probably going to only get worse.
So, but one of the things that I feel is that, at least I, deep down in my heart, knew that it was going to get changed eventually. But we've got a lot more people engaged in the field. And the onus is more and more on us to move forward and support that next generation. I think we have laid the groundwork. We can start encouraging, students, those that are really promising, trying to help them get resources. But, it will force us, many people, to take more of an initiative. I don't know if you've been at Morehouse or Spelman, those students graduate with, the schools set up handicaps, so it's impossible to graduate if you follow the rules they give you. So the students learn there how to they don't follow the rules, they figure out the system and they find ways to make it work despite the system. And that's the next phase, I think, for us.
Yeah, we need to
Yeah.
promote each other. I think that's going to be.
Yeah, and unfortunately now it's up to the institutions to do the right thing. So we just, I guess, have to find those institutions that are willing to admit a diverse group of students, and it's just devastating, though.
I think this whole DEI initiative, I think we need to, if it's serious, we need to find which institutions are
Yeah.
really serious about that commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And
Exactly. Go to those schools and just don't go to the others.
Yeah, that's some good advice. So we're at the top of the hour. They can't even type anymore into the chat. But do you guys have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
I think, physics is a field that you can follow your own passions. It allows you to do just about anything that you want to do once you get the initial degrees out of the way. And so go for physics. I mean, it's a great major. I don't regret doing it at all.
I love it.
I'll just moderate that a little bit. Follow your passions rather, when you can, and then there'll be some situations where you can't really follow your passions, but that's okay. Play to your strengths. Try to make sure you understand yourself well enough so that you can play to your strengths. And, like Hakeem, he's sort of branding himself around things that are his strengths. The other thing is always keep your eyes open for opportunities. When difficult times manifest, when they are upon us, that's usually because aspects of the system are not blending together well. And as they're breaking apart, that's when, the difficult times is when opportunities emerge. So always keep your eyes peeled for opportunities. You may be able to help create a new direction. Those are the opportunities to create new directions. You may be able to do that, but you got to keep your eyes peeled and think about the situation and figure out how can we do this so that it's more efficient or whatever. A lot of times opportunities present themselves to us, but we're so focused on some predetermined objective that we don't see them when they manifest. So if there are difficult times, always have a part of your mind that's looking at, okay, what opportunity what are those that are evolving, right? Because when I got thrown out during when the Cold War ended, everybody else was also. So you're not the only one that is, discombobulated, but you can be the first one to see the new pathway. Because it's rare that you have pathways that you can pave, but in difficult, unstable times, there's lots of new pathways.
First of all, don't let anybody tell you you don't belong, because you do belong. And secondly, take Dr. Jackson's advice to be well-rounded. You can do physics and sports, you can do physics and music, you can be in the band, you can do physics and art, physics and something else. Or you can just do physics, but don't think you are, boxed in. Follow your passion.
Well, thank you so much and thank you for everyone that's joined online. We really appreciate you spending the time with us. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
who called in.